We are live, sir.
Santosh, please start.
Yes. Welcome you all the doctors who have joined today's webinar. So my slides are visible. Just Sami sir.
Yeah. Can I take over and I'll, okay?
Yes, sir. So welcome all the audience to the Professor Y.R. Yadav's Neuroendoscopy Surgery Series episode 5. So the today topic is the endoscopy, management of lumbar disc disease and the lumbar canal stenosis. So this initiative is brought to you by the DigiNeuro, a digital initiative by Health and Therapeutics Private Limited, a joint venture with New Link Company Limited, Japan. So we have those innovative brands for the neurosurgery and neuro basket. In the migraine and painful nerves, we have the first time India combination amitriptyline plus mycophenolate, amitriptyline, pain relief, feeling good. And in the migraine, with the comorbid condition, one is not enough. Then beta, the bit headache together. There is also first time India combinations. Another one, Neurite injection, which is the only brand which is we are importing from Japan, the one and only made in Japan product. Then another range, the Amnurite Fee for 24 hours pain relief in the severe neuropathic pain. And recently we have launched one in migraine, the Brentamine, vitamin therapy for migraine. And in step ladder treatment of epilepsy, we have launched Adeclovas 2.5 milligram, first time in India strength, and 5 milligram and 10 milligram is also available, that too in mouth dissolving tablet. So all the webinars is available on the DigiNeuro YouTube channel. Just you need to type on YouTube DigiNeuro. So all the Y.R. Yadav sirs and all other neurosurgery and other webinars, which is available freely on the YouTube. So you can join, you can watch all the webinars on YouTube. So I'm very happy to introduce today's webinar, the moderator, the Professor Dr. Narayan Swami sir. He's a MS surgeon and professor at Super Specialty Hospital, NSCB Government Medical College, Jabalpur. And his special interest in minimal invasive surgery. And he's having many publications on his name. So welcome, sir, and just
thank you
to you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I welcome every delegate for this webinar, continuation of the series by Professor Yadav. Professor Yadav is going to be introduced by Dr. Lucano. I'll introduce Dr. Lucano, and after that, the session will be handed over to Professor Yadav to continue the series. Dr. Lucano, please.
Thank you, Professor Swan. I work as consultant in neurosurgery in Cuneo, a city in the north Italy. I am honored to introduce in this webinar the Professor Yadav, great neurosurgeon and for me, great person. Professor Yadav is one of the most well-known names in the field of neurosurgery, not only in India, but across the world, continually pioneering and introducing new technique within neuroendoscopy. He is the chief of neurosurgery at Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose Medical College in Jabalpur, where every 6 months he gives workshop, including live surgery and manual training with neuroendoscopy devices. I'm very happy to spend 1 month every year with Professor Yadav in neurosurgery department in Jabalpur. Today, he will talk to us about the neuroendoscopy technique used to treat lumbar disc disease and lumbar canal stenosis. Thank you, Professor Yadav, for your lecture.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. It's honor to me to introduce Professor Angelo Lucano. He is a senior consultant in Cuneo. He passed his degree in 1988. After that, he has been in the field of neurosurgery. He has decided, throughout his life that he dedicates himself as a student. He has done various fellowships which one can only envy upon. He has done under all the great names which are available in neurosurgery. He has done skull-based surgery, he has done vascular surgery, he has done spine surgery, and recently he has taken up neuroendoscopy. He has gone all around the world. He has got his training in Germany, he's got training in Spain, training in USA, he's got training in Italy, and he has come here also for neuroendoscopy. You name anything, he has got an experience in it, but he loves enjoying the neuroendoscopic work. So today's session, we welcome you. And now I'll hand over the session to Professor Yadav to continue the series.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Swami and Dr. Lucano, Angelo, for
Thank you.
nice words. Thank you very much. So I think we start with the is that all right, Dr. Swami?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It is all right.
Full screen is visible, sir.
Yes, sir. It's completely all right.
Okay. So I'll be talking on endoscopic management of lumbar disc and also in the end little bit about lumbar canal stenosis management, endoscopic surgery. So we all know that lumbar disc disease are quite common, and the majority of them can be managed by conservative treatment. Surgery is needed when there is a progressive neurodeficit or the radicular pain not responding to conservative treatment. So in such situation, we have to, or if there is a bladder valve involvement also, then obviously it is absolute indication, immediate indication for surgery. Microdiscectomy has been the gold standard so far, and still it is considered to be the baseline. So any result which you try to do, anything which you try to do has to be equivalent or better than the microdiscectomy. So your results will be compared with the gold standard using microscope with or without tubular retractor. Endoscopic technique have been used by now by almost very large number of neurosurgeons and spine surgeons, and this has been found to be very effective and safe. But it is only after the good experience, because I have seen many series which says that the results are not good. So I think those are the people in which the experience it was there in the early learning curve. So after you have sufficient experience in endoscopic surgery, then the results are as good as microdiscectomy or even better, because the visualization is better. The endoscopic technique provides early are better as far as early results are compared as compared to microdiscectomy. The late results, after 6 weeks or so, the results of both microdiscectomy and endoscopic surgeries are equally good. And especially if the lesion is extending onto the opposite side, since the visualization is better, so it endoscope has the edge over the microscope when the lesion is, if there are bilateral symptoms. So causes, brief about causes. This occurs when the soft nucleus pulposus of the disc protrude through the damaged outer layer, that is nucleus fibrosis, and then this disc material causes compression onto the nerve, which give rise to symptoms. And this process may be gradual or it may be sudden also. Sometime after the trauma, one can have acute presentation. The damage may occur with age, or there may be hereditary factor or work related problem also can precipitate this. Now, as regard to the degenerative changes, most of the time there are combination of factors. It is not only disc. So there may be a disc degeneration, there may be facet hypertrophy, there may be osteophyte, which is causing compression canal stenosis. There may be ligamentum flavum hypertrophy. So depending upon the cause, you have to treat them. So any modality which can address most of them. Unfortunately, there are other modalities in which you can only address possibly a disc, but rest of the things like osteophytes, the ligamentum flavum on both sides are difficult to treat by other endoscopic surgery, which I will be talking about. So the approach which I will be talking is the interlaminar approach. This provides 360-degree decompression of the thecal sac and also the nerve root. So the causes, as I have already discussed, may be the disc, the bony spur, facet joint, and the ligament. So all these things you need to know before surgery and treat. And always rule out unstable spine, because these are all degenerative process, and most of the degeneration are either because of the overuse of these natural structures or misuse, or because of some micro movements or instability. So always rule out unstable spine before you do any surgical procedure. Because if you do not select proper patients, because if there is an associated unstable spine, you need to fuse it. So removing only the disc or the facet joint or hypertrophic facet joint or ligamentum flavum will not work. So I'll discuss which case are better. There may be presentation, may be pain in the leg, back pain radiating into leg is the best candidate for surgery, because the pain in leg is because of the radiculopathy. But if the pain in the back is out of proportion to the pain in the leg, then you should rule out unstable spine, and you should address this instability also. Otherwise, your patient will not have proper results. There may be neurodeficit, weakness, or sensory loss, or bladder bowel involvement, which all of us know. I think I can also skip various presentation, pain, numbness, or motor weakness, depending upon the various routes which are involved because of want of time. We all of us know also. So there are quick tests also. Standing after squatting, if there is any problem, that could be L3, walking on heel, L5, difficulty in walk or walking on the toe is S1. There are methods to find out whether the symptoms are because of the canal stenosis or disc herniation. This also I will not be talking. because I think we should concentrate more on to how the surgery should be done and what are the various complications and how you should avoid them. These are all available in the literature. Lumbar canal stenosis, if you hyperextend for more than 30 seconds and if the pain is generated, that means there is associated canal stenosis. So good decompression is required. Not only you remove the disc, but you need to find out the other cause like ligamentum flavum, osteophytes, facet, all those things should be addressed. And also, I will not go through the various causes in lumbar canal stenosis. Also, you have neurogenic claudication. Similar kind of vascular claudication may be seen in ischemia of the limb. So we must know how to differentiate between neurogenic claudication and vascular claudication. And we should not treat vascular claudication as a neurogenic claudication. Obviously, the results are not going to be good. There are various tests. Also, I'm skipping those. The differential diagnosis, other things you should always rule out is that sometimes there may be hip or knee problems which may mimic the lumbar problem or sacroiliac joint, or there may be the unstable spine in which the back pain is out of proportion than the radiculopathy. So mainly the most of the surgery results are good when predominant symptoms are because of the radiculopathy. But in lumbar canal stenosis, you may not get the radiculopathy or neurodeficit. I'm again skipping how to differentiate the problem, internal rotation or external rotation. At the hip, if you do, there will be pain, whereas in neurogenic, there won't be any pain. So, the proper case selection, and you should make sure that it is a proper case for surgery, then only take up those cases. Pre-operative assessment also requires detailed history and thorough physical examination to find out what is the pathology, because at times the MRI may look more extensive, the disease may look more extensive, whereas only one or two roots are symptomatic. So it is better to address the problem at hand. One should never do a prophylactic surgery. Do not think that after 10 years or 5 years, this another segment will get degenerated. So why not to remove all of them? So radiology may look more extensive. You have to make a good clinical judgment, correlate that your clinical findings and radiological findings are correlating, and then only you take up for surgery. And again, I am telling you over and over, because most of the this in an elderly patient or maybe because of some instability. So always rule out unstable spine by getting flexion extension X-ray. And if you do only a disc surgery or decompress the root without handling the unstable spine, the patient will continue to complain, especially the low back pain will be there. We also now know that the foraminal disc will compress the exiting root. So if there is L4-5 disc prolapse, foraminal will cause L4 radiculopathy or symptoms, but the lateral disc will cause L5, means root below, which will be traversing. So exiting root will only be involved when there is a foraminal or lateral disc, when little more lateral, or extraforaminal also and foraminal. Paracentral will compress the other, but if there is a central disc, then this can cause multiple root involvement. They may be called iguana. MRI is the investigation of choice, but CT scan or myelo-CT also can provide some useful information in some cases when MRI is not possible. So detailed study of MRI or CT scan is required. You should study the disc, where it is prolapsed, whether it is central, paramedian or foraminal or extraforaminal. You should also see the foramen, whether the normal fat which is present in the foramen is there or not. If it is not there, there is compression in the foramen, you have to tackle this also. So just removal of disc from the center or paramedian will not relieve the symptoms. So before surgery, you study anatomy very well by looking at a MRI very carefully. What is the status of ligamentum flavum? Lamina angle also is important. At times, the lamina angle is very steep, so this will cause problem in docking your endoscope. Facet hypertrophy may be associated, and these facet hypertrophy does not allow proper docking, and even at times the spinous process may be deviated. So going from that side may be difficult. Like in this case, if there is a facet hypertrophy, your tubular retractor will stay here only, and you get at times the facet hypertrophy is too much. So you hardly get any space to work between the spinous process and this. So you have to read a little bit of this. So beforehand, if you know this, then you can deal it better. And there are situations I have come across cases in which the spinous process have been deviated. So there is a hypertrophy of the spinous process which does not allow your tubular retractor to be docked. You see, whatever we may talk about that we can angulate our scope like this, but always try to make your endoscope, if you station your endoscope at 90 degree, the work is best done. Otherwise, if there is an angulation, then in that case, it will be very difficult to decompress the area near the facet joint unless you make it straight and use drill. So in such situation, you can go from opposite side. It will be easier to go from opposite this. Or else the other option is you drill the split the spinous process, take out this hypertrophied spinous process, and then you can very well dock your scope very well, tubular retractor. And see this one. So if the lamina is vertical, if the lamina is lying vertical, then also it becomes difficult for you to dock your endoscope. So in that case, before proper docking, you need to remove the part which is vertical so that your tubular retractor will dock very well. So all these things one must understand before doing any surgery. The distance. Hello. Hello.
So we can hear you.
Okay. So was there any problem in between?
Yes, sir. For
Okay.
a second, the screen went blank. You can hear you now.
So have you missed anything
No,
before
no,
that?
no. Just for a second. Just for a second.
Okay. Okay. No
Yeah.
problem.
You can continue, sir.
From from here.
Yeah.
Okay. So distance between the medial and the facet to lateral and
Sure.
of the spinous process is very important. And then another very important thing is interlaminar window.
Sir, you can share your screen, sir, please.
Share skin again.
Yes, sir. The screen is not seen.
Okay, okay. Okay. So where is my, okay, share screen. Is that okay now?
Yes, sir. Full screen. Yes, sir. Please
Okay.
continue, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Now
So
it's all right.
I think because of rain and all those things, the internet connection may be not good. So please tell me when you have problem.
Yes,
I
sir.
start from the previous one. There is no
Yes.
restriction of time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Interlaminar window is very important, and there are situations in which the interlaminar window is also obliterated completely. In fact, there may be overriding of one lamina over the other. So in such situations, surgery may become little difficult. So you should anticipate it in beforehand and deal it. In these cases, you have to use drill. So these are herniated disc. You should also know what are the different portions. Like this is a thecal sac. What is recess? Lateral recess is from the lateral margin of thecal sac to the medial margin of articular facet joint or superior articular facet. And the neural foramen is from medial margin of facet joint to the lateral margin of the facet joint. Anything beyond that will become extra foraminal disc. So there can be various type of disc, and depending upon where the disc is prolapsed, there will be symptoms. So this is the traversing route. There will be exiting route. So only foraminal disc will cause compression on the exiting route. Paracentral disc will cause compression on traversing or disc. So these are again shown. Central portion, lateral recess, foramen, and in foraminal stenosis, it is the superior articular process which causes compression. Usually, the inferior articular process does not come in contact with this. So you have to deal this. Just removing the inferior articular facet will not cause any good. So address the lateral recess very well, and you should know the anatomy reasonably well. These are the various discs: central disc, the paramedian disc, the foraminal disc, and this. So accordingly, or extraforaminal, and deal accordingly. Now, these two things are also very important, and if you can find out before surgery, it is always better. Which type of prolapse? At times it is difficult to find out, but majority of the cases you can make out whether the disc prolapse is of a shoulder type or it is axillary type. So how to differentiate? If it is a kissing type of, if the disc prolapse is coming in contact with the ligamentum flavum or the lamina, then it is likely to be axial. It is almost diagnostic that it is an axial type of disc prolapse because the root does not come in the way, it is lateral to the root, and therefore the disc fragment is in contact with either a lamina or the ligamentum flavum. But in shoulder type of this, you will find that the root is displaced anteriorly. So these are a little more dangerous. Uh, Here you don't find much problem. You can take out the disc. Here the root has been displaced posteriorly. So using a Carrison punch, you will have to be very careful. Otherwise, you may injure this displaced root. So find out what is the pathology, and then accordingly, you have to be careful otherwise also for everything which you do. And in parasagittal also MRI, you should be looking for any deviation or any indentation on these roots which are going like this. So these little paracentral views are also important. Moderate size disc herniation. And I was talking about the foramen. Foramen, you will find root here and maybe some blood vessels, but there is a lot of fat also in the foramen. So if there is a loss of fat, then you should suspect that there is associated, either the disc fragment has gone there, or there is a facet hypertrophy, or even here in the facet joint, when below the facet joint there is a ligamentum flavum. So part of the ligamentum flavum may become hypertrophy and will be causing compression on the root. You may feel very happy that I have removed 50% disc and everything is fine, but you have not removed this ligamentum flavum which was attached to the this facet joint. Or there is a hypertrophied superior articular process which is causing foraminal narrowing. So unless you treat this, your patient will not improve. So everything before surgery you should know. So this is one disease. You can see that the normal foramen root is seen well, but here all fat has been disappeared because of this prolapse. So that you should be able to find out. Excuse me. Yeah. So, so the indication of surgery again, progressive neurodeficit or radicular pain not responding to conservative treatment. This can be used, endoscopy can be used when there is a bilateral, unilateral symptoms or bilateral symptoms. So indications are very important. But in beginning of your learning curve, I think you should take unilateral symptoms. Bilateral, once you have sufficient experience, then you can deal. You can operate at single level, there can be multiple level, but operating more than 2 levels, I think will take too much of time. So that therefore I do only 2 level this if endoscopy is required. High prolapse means massive prolapse of high degree, and the axillary type of disc prolapse need interlaminar. If you have an axillary type of disc prolapse, there may be transforaminal approach cannot be suitable. Lateral, central, foraminal, extraforaminal, recurrent disc, calcified or fibrous disc, migrated disc, and all level disc including L5S1, L1, L2 to L5S1. All lumbar disc can be addressed, and you can also address whether patient has a mild stenosis or severe stenosis. In very severe stenosis and high grade prolapse, means more than 50% of the canal diameter has been occupied by disc and the other thing, then possibly transforaminal may not be able to do good decompression. But with the advanced technique now and experience, things are possible, which I'll discuss. Even in LCS, the endoscope can be used. So if there is a lumbar canal stenosis, you can increase the diameter of the thecal sac up to 400 times. So the range is, in one study, it was from 200% to 700%. We have done a study in which the canal diameter, average increase in the canal diameter was 246%. So it is affecting in lumbar canal stenosis also. But contraindication, absolute contraindication, if there is unstable spine, 3 or more level, it takes more time, but no absolute contraindication. But I avoid this if it is more than 2 level. Regarding the procedure, the patient should be in prone position, radiolucent table, because you need the image intensifier to localize the incision. General anesthesia we use, but local anesthesia also can be used. One should go for localizing using either a lumbar needle or there is a specific localizer available with different companies. The skin incision is about 1 centimeter away from the midline. Position, I use prone position with bolsters on the side because this becomes more physiological. The patient position, 2 bolsters on side, so this is more physiological compared to when there is too much of flexion. So surgery becomes easier, but you may have a false impression that you have done a good decompression, whereas in a neutral position, that decompression may not be sufficient. So bolster on either side, under the chest and abdomen. The baseline is that chest and abdomen should be free, so that there is no venous congestion. And another thing which I have found it very important, at times the patient has too much of lordosis. So once you make that patient lie on the bed prone, then most of this lordosis goes. But still, if there is a lordosis, you take a C-arm picture and you find that there is a lordosis. In that case, you should break the table. So break the table first to allow this spine to become as flat as possible. If your spine remains lordotic, then there may be some problem in approaching the disc. See, if you want to remove this disc, you have to come from here. Okay, if you go like this, then you cannot remove more of the disc if there is a high degree of canal compromise and you need to empty the disc, because then only you can push. This I'll be dealing with. If there is a very high canal stenosis, it is impossible to go for targeted discectomy, which people talk surgery. So without removal and or emptying of the disc, you cannot push the fragment down, especially on the opposite side. So try to make this the spine as flat as possible so that the surgery becomes easier. Various techniques are available, but all of them, they utilize dilatation technique. You can have various systems like Best and Do, Smart or EasyGo. So I have used or I am using also Best and Do and EasyGo. No experience with the other system. So this is the Best and Do, in which you have a outer tube, there is an inner tube with this thing to hold the telescope, and there is a trocar. In EasyGo, you have various dilators and tubular retractor with endoscope, which is having here you use 0-degree scope. Here it is 20-degree, or in the previous it was 30-degree previous version. With version 2, I think it is 20 degree now, which is more than enough. So localization, one can use either a lumbar needle, but this may cause harm and can. So localizer are non-invasive methods, but there may be mistake in this. So you have to be very careful. For localization, both arms should be superimposed. Abdomen should be free. This is kind of localizer which can be moved in 3 directions. You can rotate it, uh, angulate it. So it's a good thing and it's a non-invasive. But the important thing is that both the arms of your localizer should be superimposed. If by mistake one localizer arm is here, another is somewhere here at S1 or this thing, and that means at least one level is wrong. You cannot be at L45 and L5S1. So both the arms should be superimposed, number one, and this angle of arm should be as near to the 90 degree. If you angulate it too much, then it becomes difficult to operate. So if you require too much of angulation, you break the table, localize again. If you break the table later on, and then you may find that your localization which you have done before the breaking may go wrong. So both should superimpose and the arm should be about 90 degrees. Don't angulate it too much, more than, you can angulate it to about 80 degree or maybe 100 degree, but not too much of angulation. If it is required, that means there will be difficulty in angulation while you are operating. And removal of the disc, so many problems. So it is better to make the spine flat and then localize again and go. So midline, mark the midline, mark the level of surgery using this localizer or whatever needle, and then at appropriate level about 1 centimeter away from midline, you make an incision of about 1.5 centimeter. So incision does not vary depending upon the obesity of the patient. The incision will remain same, but it depends upon the size of tubular retractor. If you are using 22 millimeter diameter endoscope tubular retractor, then you have to make little larger incision. Although some stretching of the skin also is there. If you use the stendo, there may be little smaller size of incision, and in other also there may be smaller. But especially for lumbar canal stenosis and two-level work, it is better to use little wider tubular retractor. So you should cut the fascia, then only these dilators will go. And I cut the fascia little more than what is desired so that I can move it cranially and caudally if required. Various dilators are available in EasyGo, or one can separate the paraspinal muscle as you do the open surgery in the stendo approach. In EasyGo, it is the dilatation of muscles are within within the muscle it is going. So these are dilating the muscle. Whereas in best endo, you separate muscle from the spinous process as you do in normal surgery. Now, this step is very important. When you go inside and you take, so once you have removed the soft tissue over the lamina, over the facet joint, then you dock your endoscope on the spinous process. So when you dock the endoscope, then you should be seeing the superior lamina. So in the superior portion, you should be seeing superior lamina, and in the inferior part, you should be seeing the lamina only, and there is no interlaminar space. That means either your uh, direction of your tubular retractor is wrong, or your localization is wrong. So you should be very careful if you find only lamina. So in superior half there should be lamina, and inferior half there should be interlaminar space, soft tissue. Uh, that means you have done a good work, and your docking process is fine. Uh, in surgery, little bit, the incision may be little smaller in the skin, but fascia little larger. The skin muscle also dissection. When you don't cut the muscle, but you push it cranially little bit more, and also caudally little bit more. If you don't do it, then these muscles or soft tissue keep on coming in your feet. So I make a inverted flash like this thing. The muscle separates more, fascia is little more, so that in this space I put in a gauze piece. So if I put in a gauze piece here, this gauze piece will not go in the tubular retractor. Whereas if the fat is there, the muscle is there, and you angulate the tubular retractor, it keeps on peeping inside the tube, and your surgery, you may have difficulty in surgery. So especially if you have to angulate it cranially, caudally, if there is associated canal stenosis, you have to go little more cranial and caudally from the same incision. It is better to have little larger opening in the fascia and separation of muscle cranially, caudally, and put in gauze piece so that you can push the whole tubular retractor cranially and caudally rather than angulate. So people talk that I can angulate the cranially and caudally. If you angulate it, then this gauze piece or the muscle or the fat will keep on coming in your foot. So try to keep your tubular retractor as vertical as possible. Little bit of angulation is all right. So once you have removed little bit of more fascia, then the whole tubular retractor should be pushed cranially, or it should be pushed caudally rather than angulation. Maybe 80-degree, 75-degree angulation is all right, but more angulation will allow the soft tissue to come inside the tubular retractor, and working will be the soft tissue. There is a spinous process and all bone things. But okay, is that all right? Hello.
Yes,
Yes,
sir, this
sir,
is
we
all
can.
right, sir. This
All
is
right,
all
all
right,
right.
sir.
We can listen to you. The slide is also on, sir.
Perfectly all right, sir. Please carry on.
Okay. 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 Please, remain. Whenever there's problem, you please let me know. It is raining outside. So gauze piece tagged with the silk suture is kept at the superior, inferior, and lateral margin. I go for opposite side decompression. And these gauze pieces should be just above the lamina. Mistake which my juniors or the assistant have done in the past, I'll show the diagram. If you put in a tag gauze piece here, you see, understand gauze piece. So you keep a gauze piece here, it is of no use. The muscle will keep on coming. So the gauze piece has to be as deep as possible. Keep this gauze piece just over the lamina like this. So it is not that you just keep a gauze piece and it is higher up which is unnecessary, causing hindrance in angulation of your tubular retina. So cos piece has to be right at the on the lamina. Soft tissue are removed, whichever is lying on the lamina and the interlaminar space. After that, you go for resection of one. You can use either a Carrison punch or a drill. You require a drill if there is, you need to go on the opposite side. I'll be telling why. If you have to decompress bilateral, drill is absolute must. Otherwise, ipsilateral symptoms, Carrison punch is all right. So remove the superior lamina up to the attachment of the ligamentum flavum. Inferior lamina, because the ligamentum flavum is attached only at the superior margin, so very small little and is required to be removed. You can use the drill or you can use Carrison punch for this purpose. And you can angulate these. So it is very clear that if you want to angulate it and you want to go on the opposite side, you need to drill the base of the spinous process, which I will be showing in the diagram, without which it is impossible. You have to drill the base of the spinous process. You have to drill, undercut the opposite side lamina, remove the ligamentum flavum if it is there, or maybe hypertrophied facet joint. So endoscopically, it is possible to go on easier. This diagram is because we talk about is possible. This, which is
Sir, your audio is not proper. So, sir,
Maybe some problem with the internet.
yeah, internet is very weak.
Yeah, probably.
Yes. Hello, sir.
Sir is disconnected, sir.
Yeah, because of the internet, he has
Yes,
to now reconnect back. Yeah, we'll wait. We'll wait. Sir, he's back.
okay. I think I need to share again.
Yes, sir. We lost you for a minute.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that all right now?
Yes.
sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sorry, please keep on telling me, because this is very important step of surgery.
Okay, sir.
Now, when there is a severe compression, you cannot talk of targeted discectomy. That people talk that only a small portion of the disc is removed. You cannot decompress on the opposite side. So you have to empty the disc. You have to go for significant decompression from this side, and then using a right angle dissector, push this disc inside, because taking out disc from a disc or otherwise by anything of this middle or the opposite side will be very difficult. So empty the disc space, push the disc which is there in the center or on the opposite side inside disc space, and then you take it out. So gradually the middle part of the disc has been pushed inside, the opposite side disc fragment has been pushed inside by using a right angle dissector. Right angle dissector, you pass in between the thecal sac and the prolapsed disc and push it inside. So push this disc inside and take out from the ipsilateral side. You can only go for over the top decompression about the ligamentum flavum, but not about the disc. Only a free fragment of the disc can be removed from over the top. Otherwise, most of the disc, if it is a central disc which has attachment with the original disc has to be pushed in the disk space and removed. So this pushing in the disk space is possible only when you empty it in the beginning. Therefore, most of the disk, significant amount of the disk need to be removed. So this is what in the diagram. So indirect decompression, first empty the disk and then you remove it from the opposite side. Ligamentum flavum should not be removed unless you have done all the bony work. Especially if you are going on the opposite side, first undercut the lamina and then only remove the ligamentum flavum. If you have already removed the ligamentum flavum, there are increasing chances of dural tear. This ligamentum flavum should be left because this will be protecting your dura when you are doing your opposite side surgery. Ligamentum flavum, if it is only a disc, it can be removed or partially removed, or some people say that you can save also to avoid the fibrosis. But in kind of patient which we treat massive disc, invariably you need to remove the ligamentum flavum, and you have to remove it when it is pathological. So part of the pathological disc is removed if there is only unilateral symptoms, so go for targeted discectomy. But if there is a significant disc protrusion or in canal compromise, high degree of canal compromise, in that case you have to empty most of the disc. And I found many surgeons operating in endoscope take out very little amount of it, and these patients come with recurrent symptoms. So I think with massive disc prolapse and causing more canal compromise, it is very essential to remove a significant part of the disc. Whereas targeted discectomy will be done when there is a root compression. Very small part of the disc is compressing on the root, and most of it is contained within the disc space. Visualize the detail. You can, especially with the Des-Tendu, you can pass your scope through the other working channel in which you are passing the Carrison punch and visualize the disc very well. And if there is a loose fragment, you take it out. Multiple incisions are preferred if you have more than 2 levels, except at L5S1 and L45, because there these are lying very close by, and with very little angulation, it is possible to remove L45 disc and L5S1. And this is the only reason that this L45 and L5S1 is a very notorious place for wrong level. These are very close by, so at times you might think that it is L5S1, whereas it may be L45. So here you should be careful because the discs are with small little angulation, you may reach L45 and L5S1. This I have already discussed, that if there is a significant disc prolapse, you have to remove this significant disc. Otherwise, only removing a part of the disc which is near the root is not going to work. And another important aspect, how you should remove the other opposite side lamina. See, this is, a diagrammatic representation. Supposing this is the ligamentum flavum, this is lamina of ipsilateral side, opposite side. So remove the ipsilateral lamina, the ligamentum flavum from ipsilateral side and opposite side is intact. And so if you try to drill the inner table of the opposite side lamina, you can also injure the Carrison. See, it is almost impossible to use Carrison punch and take it out. It will always slip. because there is no purchase. So what I do is that I keep the inner table intact and drill only the bone which is near the inner table, protecting the inner table. Therefore, I am not injuring this. So make a gutter in between inner table and the outer table of the lamina, and then use Carrison punch to take it out. Again, drill it little bit, leaving the inner table intact. So by using this technique, you can undercut the whole lamina, and in fact, you can undercut the facet joint on the opposite side, and giving rise to such an excellent dural expansion. And that was the reason that we could get more than 250 times of thecal sac decompression from the original. Anybody can decompress the disc. See, this is very easy. If it is secondary to the disc prolapse, you can take it out. But if it is significantly because of the osteophyte facet hypertrophy and because of the ligamentum flavum which is thickened, then removal of the contralateral undersurface of the lamina and the ligamentum flavum and part of the facet joint is important. And this is the trick which I have learned and I am sharing with you. So this is again to emphasize that leave the inner table intact. Remove this inner table not by the drill but with the Carrison punch. But remove this part with the drill, because otherwise using a Carrison punch, you will never be able to remove this. It will always slip. There is no purchase. And again, emphasizing over and over because it is very, very important. So only make a gutter in the lamina, inner side of, supposing it is opposite side lamina. So make a gutter, remove this inner lamina using a Carrison punch. Then again, make a gutter, remove with the Carrison punch and so on. And always keep the ligamentum flavum intact. This will help in case there is some, drill may touch the ligamentum flavum. But if you remove this ligamentum flavum, the drill will injure this dura. The other important aspect to prevent dural tear is that some company, they provide dural guard. So you can use dural guard which will protect the injury of the dura. But even without dural guard, if you use a good technique, then you can do good decompression of the opposite side without injury. So this shows you can angulate it and can drill, but you cannot drill the lamina unless you remove the base of the spinous process. So don't make it unstable. Don't break the hole and through. So drill it like this, then only you will be able to angulate, and then your drill will work. Otherwise also, if you have an angle drill, it is better. Even with the straight drill, if you remove the base of the spinous process, you can undercut the opposite lamina by the method I have shown. Keep the ligamentum flavum intact. Keep also inner table of the opposite lamina intact. Remove with the Carrison punch only. The other important aspect is when there is a thick ligamentum flavum, which may be at times ossified or calcified. In those situations, don't see this diameter is very small. So if you put in Carrison punch from this side, then there is a possibility that you might produce irreversible damage to the nerves. So come from either caudal side or cranial side, because here there is sufficient space. So come from caudal side or cranial side, this way, that way, but never come from medial side to lateral side to remove this Carrison punch. Sometimes this hourglass type of pinching effect by the ligamentum flavum hypertrophy, which may be partly ossified. So in that case, coming from cranial or caudal will do good decompression without injuring the compromised cord. This is a short video. I think I have explained most of this. This was a disc prolapse on left side, was shoulder type because the root was posteriorly, and this was post-op CT scan MRI, which was complete good decompression. So this is a cranial side, medial side. So lamina is being removed till you find the upper edge of the ligamentum flavum. So once you find the upper edge of the ligamentum flavum, that is the limit. This is the upper end of the ligamentum flavum. Then using a hook, you can separate this ligamentum flavum from the dura, and then you can use patties to protect your dura. Here it is important, caudal side when you use Carrison punch, it should be 90 degree. Whereas cranial Carrison punch, you can use 45 degree. Before you deliver this disc, you should use, it is an edited video. So one should separate the thecal sac from the dura. Angled dissector should be used to separate it from the thecal sac. Otherwise, you may cause injury to the dura. So this is being removed, and make sure that the root is decompressed. I am using the right angle dissector to push the fragment inside. So just don't try to pull this fragment toward you. Just push it, just compress this towards the disc. So once you compress it towards the disc, that fragment usually comes out, or the fragment goes inside the disc space, and you can use disc forceps to empty that fragment. And likewise, a larger angle, since this patient had only unilateral symptoms, therefore I did not go for too much of opposite side. Otherwise, you can have right angle dissector which has long limb, and you can go. So in the end, one should go for good suction, irrigate the disc space. I put in a small gel. So if there is a too much of another thing in your surgery, if you find too much of cranial or caudal angulation, if your tubular retractor is angulating too much cranially, or it is angulating too much caudally, or it is angulating too much medially or laterally, that means you are at a wrong level, or you are going to find lot of problems. So your tubular retractor should be about 90 degree to get a good work. Too much angulation will be difficult, and if there is a too much angulation, then you should suspect that you are at a wrong level, because you must have reached at lamina only. If you are at a correct level, you will be at superior end will have a lamina, and the inferior will have interlaminar space. And if your whole tubular retractor has gone inside, that means you might be on the transverse process. So these things you should L5 and L5S1, but at the same time you may go at a wrong level.
Hello? Hello?
It's the internet connection again.
Yeah. Sir, we have lost your audio. Hello?
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah. Now, hello.
Hello?
Sir got disconnected.
Yes. He'll come back. Yes. Hello?
Yes, sir. So we had lost you for 2 minutes, sir. Please, it's not okay now.
Okay. So I think I'll again.
Yeah, yes, sir. Please kindly describe it.
Okay, I'll share again, and sorry for the problem. Is that okay now?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sorry for interruption. So it is easy for L5, L45 and L5S1. At the same time, I was saying that it is also easy to get at a wrong level at L45 and L5S1. So be careful. But it is difficult at L1, L2 technically, because the lamina, they tend to become more vertical. So you have to drill the lamina to correctly dock the your tubular retractor there. Use drill to becomes essential in such cases when there is a vertical lamina, or if you have to go on the opposite side. I told you because there is no other way to remove the under surface of the lamina of opposite side except to use the drill. You cannot remove the under surface of lamina using a Carrison punch. So bilateral symptoms, you have to use drill. Okay. And unnecessary, don't make a larger incision in beginning of your learning curve. You might think that make a large incision, it is a disadvantage. Because there will be in a snugly fitting tubular retractor, there is no bleeding because of tamponade effect, and you don't need to hold the retractor, especially destined because the tissue, surrounding tissue is gripping your tubular retractor very well. So if you make a larger incision, there will be more bleeding from the margin and your system will become unstable. Sorry. So keep tube vertical, I have already told. So these I'm stressing it again and again rather than angulating it. So increase risk of dural tear when you go on to the opposite side, especially if you remove ligamentum flavum. There is a severe canal stenosis, high risk of dural tear. If there is a central disc and it is pushing the dura posteriorly, so the moment you make a bite and you might take the ligamentum flavum also and also take the dura and produce a dural tear, and the root comes out and you are in trouble. So be careful. If it is a high degree of canal compromise, more than 50%, then you have to drill it and be careful that you don't injure the uh, ligamentum flavum before you remove the bone. If there are multi-level compression. The technique may be combined with the interbody fusion using a transformational approach, but it cannot be used in listhesis more than grade 2. I have no experience of combining this. So this is a preoperative results of surgery. Preoperative, this image on the left side, preoperative disc prolapse, and postoperative having good decompression. Another case, two-level compression at L4-5 and L3-4, and this is post-operative showing the lower one showing post-operative image showing good decompression, patient improved. And this is another, 3D image where you can find that the two laminas have been removed from ipsilateral side. Again, pre-op and post-op good decompression, disc prolapse on right side, and post-op MRI showing good decompression, patient improved. Now I two or three slides of lumbar canal stenosis, and then we'll take up questions. So in lumbar canal stenosis, I have told you that the multiple factors are there. There may be disc prolapse, there may be facet hypertrophy, there may be osteophyte coming from end cartilage or the end of the vertebral body, there may be ligamentum flavum hypertrophy. So multifactorial causes may be there. Alone disc prolapse causing canal stenosis is very easy. You can treat, but if there are multiple factors, osteophytes, the opposite side lamina, ligamentum flavum, opposite side ligamentum flavum, encroaching the opposite side root. The cursor is not coming, otherwise, where is the cursor? Cursor कहाँ चला जाता है? Anyway, so this is the video of lumbar canal stenosis in which I have done bilateral decompression. Preoperative image, the post-operative patient had a bilateral symptoms, cranial side towards the left side, medial towards the up. So using Carrison punch, I have removed the lamina, but removal of ligamentum, sorry, kahan se band kare. So opposite side lamina is being drilled, and the base of the spinous process also need to. You must have seen that only I try to keep some bone and remove only the adjoining. Bone near the ligamentum flavum should be kept intact. And keep ligamentum flavum intact until you have done the whole bone work. Now, once you have done a bone decompression of ipsilateral side and opposite side, then you can take out the ligamentum flavum, because this was protecting your dural thecal sets from injury. Using patties is important, because don't try to use, I don't use root retractor. If you keep on using root, the Carrison punch is being used for removal of disc. See, for disc, because it was fibrous disc, long standing. So you can use Carrison punch, you can use even osteotome, fine osteotome to break the osteophytes there. Remove the osteotome is being used to break the osteophytes, otherwise not coming. So if it is calcified and this thing, you can use osteotome, you can use Carrison punch to remove the disc. And then using this, remove the opposite side, and in the end irrigate it. What is this? Okay. So after the disc removal, now I am trying to, because if the disc is causing compression, it is difficult to remove the opposite side ligamentum flavum very well. So once you have decompressed it, then you can go and remove the opposite side ligamentum flavum using the angled curate, angled Carrison punch, and so this is a good decompression and the end of surgery. So advantage of endoscopy: better visualization, reduced hospital stay, lower cost, allows observation and operating room staff to be more involved, better education because everything is seen. It has an advantage because it's a minimally invasive. There is less injury or no injury to the ipsilateral muscles, no damage to the supraspinous or interspinous ligament or opposite side lamina. You can only undercut it, and the opposite side facet joint also can be drilled, and the compression can be removed. It has been documented by using a EMG and these systemic cytokine response, which are an indicator of tissue damage. So these were less in endoscopic surgery compared to microdiscectomy. The EMG activity during surgery were less. That means the nerve manipulations were less. But you have to be good surgeon. If you are a beginner, then maybe you might produce equal amount of damage. With experience, things are better. Especially the opposite side decompression is good. Removal of opposite side ligamentum flavum is possible right up to the foramen, up to the opposite side foramen. The whole ligamentum flavum can be removed, ossified from the opposite side. You can undercut the opposite side lamina. And it has been seen that the results, early results of microscopic surgery or endoscopic surgery have been found to be equivalent. Endoscopic results were better, but the late results, long-term outcome of whether you go for microsurgical disc removal using with or without tubular retractor or using endoscopy is same, or even classical disc removal. So multiple randomized controlled trial, it has been seen now that endoscope has advantage, especially in the early results are better. There is a less blood loss, there are less damage, duration of hospital stay is less, and the patient pain control is better. But there is downside of it. There are limitations. There is a learning curve. There may be additional risk of more complication, especially in the beginning of your learning curve. And surgeon must be prepared in the beginning to convert to the open procedure. If you find some problem or there is a dural tear in the early part, or especially if there is a root prolapse, then you should not hesitate. A word about transforaminal and interlaminar. Yeah. So in interlaminar, you can angulate it, you can remove the opposite side lamina, undercut the base of spinous process, opposite side facet joint. From here also, you can remove the whole disc, take out the disc, push the disc of opposite side in the cavity and take it out from there. So there will be 90%, 360% decompression by interlaminar approach. And here also you can go, if needed, you can go lateral to the facet joint in between the transverse process and can remove the extraforaminal disc without sacrificing the facet joint. If you go from here only, then you might have to injure it. But if there is a far lateral disc, extraforaminal, then you go in between the two transverse processes. Whereas in transforaminal, there is a problem, especially in addressing any pathology. See, when you are going like this, it is difficult to come like this. But now I think they have the angled seizures and angle instruments, and now they go for foraminoplasty. That means they remove part of the facet joint here so as to gain some access. But this should be done by the very experienced person. So there are advantages and limitations of both procedures with very experienced. See again in the diagram that it is difficult with the transforaminal approach, transforaminal from here, to remove the ipsilateral even ligamentum flavum, but using a curved flexible forceps, they are claiming that they can remove. I have no experience. And addressing the opposite side lamina, drilling it from here, you can imagine that the angle is not proper. So whatever people claim, but ligamentum flavum hypertrophy or facet hypertrophy of very severe degree, unless you come from both the sides and go for foraminoplasty, then you remove the facet joint using. They have very high-tech drill and everything. So, I mean, the expert can do everything, but for a common man, you should be very careful. This is what they are showing, that in transforaminal they have forceps which can go up and down. So another limitation of transforaminal approach is it is for beginner or for early learning curve is if there is a high migration of disc. If it is caudally migrated or cranially migrated, it is difficult for transforaminal. But if you have flexible forceps, you can do that. I think again I will not go into the problems. There is difficulty in transforaminal, comparison, but transforaminal difficulty at L5S1 because of the iliac crest may be coming in the way, or if there is a high canal compromise, it is well proved that the amount of canal decompression in the transforaminal approach is much inferior than the interlaminar, where you can do 360-degree decompression. So if there is a significant canal compromise with bladder bowel involvement, and not to go by the transforaminal. This is what I think. I may be wrong. So bilateral difficult canal stenosis, calcified disc, but I don't know if they can use drill, then maybe uncooperative or anxious patient is the absolute contraindication, because this procedure is done under local anesthesia. Without that, if you put it through the foramen, you can injure the disc. So transforaminal patient should be cooperative and anxious. Should not be anxious. But it has advantage. There is, it is more minimally invasive, less chances of dural tear, and less systemic side effect. The learning curves are same. High iliac crest is a problem. If the iliac crest is going above the mid-level of the pedicle of L5, then it is difficult, because reaching at here may be difficult. There may be too much of angulation. But again, these experts are saying that we will drill the iliac crest, or will go through the iliac crest, make a hole in the iliac crest and then go. So, but it is not proper. One should not try to do everything with single approach. There are advantages and disadvantages of everything. And another very bad thing, you must know the anatomy. If the distance between the facet joint and the root is very close, supposing this root has been displaced here by the disc in the foramen itself. So the disc has been pushing the root just opposite the superior articular facet, and you put in your cannula here, you are likely to injure this. So if the distance between the nerve and the facet joint is very small, then you should try to take the alternate approach rather than transforaminal. At a lower level of the foramen here, if it is very close to the facet joint, this root, then try to avoid. So results of are good at 1 year compared to microscopic microsurgery or conservative surgery. The results are better, 90% success rate compared to 60% of microsurgery, and conservative are obviously much less. At 4 years, even there is an advantage of surgery, but the difference is not statistically significant. So in early years, there is a definite advantage of surgery over the conservative treatment. So there is a need, is not responding to conservative treatment, or there is a neurodeficit or blood bowel involvement, then there is no doubt. But even for pain only, early results of surgery are better than those of conservative treatment. At 10 years, but it is same. But that does not mean that this surgery has not done work, because we did not took care of our back well. So operate such cases and also advise them to have a good lifestyle, good exercise, so that to keep their back in a proper position. Otherwise, there will be recurrence at the same place, or maybe recurrence at upper side roads. So doing such, adding them the proper posture and physiotherapy later on, avoiding more weight and all those things. So complications are perforation, pseudomeningocele, CSF leak, persistent paresthesia. This is important. So I never use root retractor except for very small period, if it is absolutely must. Otherwise, with patties also, only you retract the root, or first decompress the disc. If there is a stressed nerve, already the root is very stressed, and you try to retract it to find a place to make a nick there in the disc space, the patient will continue to have persistent paresis. So first decompress the high, high and make the legs. Then you displace it cranially, caudally. Use only patties to detect the disc. Otherwise, you might have done good anatomical work, but the patient will continue to present as paresthesia. Meningitis, if there is an infection wrong level, especially at L4-5 and L5-S1, I told you, because these are very at a very small distance, and slight angulation, cranial caudal can make the difference. So if there is a root prolapse or dural tear, small grant or just a puncture, just put in fat and fibrin glue, medium size, you can suture it. There are now various anastoc clip available, or you can suture under endoscopy also. Very large, you might have to go for a graft, because then you may not be able to close the dura. Remove the significant part of dura in your bite, then you might have to use graft. So wrong level, too much angulation should be avoided.
Sir, we have lost your voice.
Yeah, I know static image is coming, I think, but then the slide is visible.
Yeah. Sir?
While I am holding on.
Yes, sir.
or
Hello? Hello?
I think sir is taking a break.
Okay.
Now sir has disconnected.
Yes, sir.
is that my voice is coming?
Yes,
Now
sir.
it is now
Now
it
it
is
is
coming,
coming,
sir. And you had yeah, left at this stage where to how to stabilize.
Okay, so now it is all right.
Yes, sir.
I am using another network. Initially, government, it is a private network. I think it will work better. Uh, so, I mean, when you use Garrison punch and take a big bite, then you should preferably hold the sheath with your hand rather than from the telescope sheath or with the suction. Otherwise, you can just keep the destined to stabilize with the suction or keeping your hand on the sheath. But when you are taking a bite, your hand should dynamically change from suction to the sheath. Otherwise, at times in my practice, the whole system has come out. So I have learned this. And the opposite hand can be used to stabilize the other long instrument. This is another trick. I think I have finished now. CSF leak chances, opposite side, more canal stenosis. Dural guard should be used. And when you make, this is important, which I always talk, when you nibble the bone, you should not do in a single jerk. Don't just nibble the lamina, you might be catching the dura here. So first you break, it should be stepwise. Break the lamina and then release your Garrison punch. Release and retract. So you have released, broken the lamina, released, retract, come out. Hold the lamina from the proximal part. Rotate the bone which you are disconnected so that everything is visualized and make sure that you have not caught the dura. Axial drilling is another technique to prevent dural tear. And I think drilling cranial cord, not towards the cord, away from the cord, no force, drill like a paintbrush is normal thing. And when you need to have a very precision in cervical disc, then using a long Garrison punch, precision becomes poor. So what you can do is that you can use your other hand, which is resting on the seat, to stabilize this, to increase your precision, and ask your sister or assistant to do suction. So both things, you can take help of your assistant for less important work. For more precision, you can use both your hand to add precision when it is required, especially in cervical. So important tip, localization, both arms should be there, it is revision. Good experience should be there in, to have a good results. Otherwise, if the technique is good, but the person is not experienced, the result will be poor. So to summarize, the endoscopic discectomy provides faster relief from acute pain in early stage than the conservative treatment. Long-term results of open, micro, and endoscopy are same. It has almost all indications, and it is better than microsurgery because you can visualize better, especially on the opposite side. Two procedure, interlaminar or transfemoral approaches are available with different indications. There are advantages and limitations of both procedures. And obtaining a microsurgical experience, attending workshop, and suitable patient selection, you can shorten your learning curve, the results will be better. Otherwise, if you take up the bad case in the beginning, more complicated, and then you get complications, get disheartened, that is not the way. So in the beginning, go and attend various workshops and have experience. Call experienced surgeon to assist you in the beginning, and in the learning curve, take simple cases. And once the learning curve is achieved, then it is very safe and effective. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So stop sharing.
Sir, yes, sir. No, sir. Kindly stay on because you'll have got to take the question and answers.
Yeah, but I have to, I think, stop sharing.
Yes, sir. Please stop sharing. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sir, thank you, sir. Thank you for the very elusive explanation about each step, how to go translaminar, how to hold the endoscope, how to undercut, how to retain the ligamentum flavum and then eggshell the bone, how to go to the opposite side, even up to the foramen. It was very, very elusive. We thank you very much, sir. We have questions. Questions are, Saurabh Banerjee from West Bengal, sir. He wants to ask, what is the, by using one port, is it possible to operate on contralateral side and level above and below?
Yes. Contralateral, it is very easy. Same level, whether there is a ipsilateral compression or contralateral, there is no problem. I told you that you can angulate your scope. Medial angulation will not cause anything because there is no muscle or any soft tissue. You just drill the base of the spinous process, undercut the lamina, and go on to the opposite side. Absolutely no problem. But regarding two level, from the same incision, you can have problem except at L4-5 and L5-S1 there, because I told you for the reason angulation, and so L4-5 and L5-S1 you can deal with the same incision. But if it is above that, then I take the separate incision. It is much better than having a larger incision. About the pain also, pain is less and it is much easier. The angulation becomes less, and therefore I prefer two separate incision for two level disc, except for L4-5 and L5-S1. Bilateral is all right.
Thank you, sir. So, Dr. Parthasarathi Datta from Calcutta, he wants to ask, multi-compartment cyst, is there any chemical which we can use from the scope?
I don't know. I'm sorry, I have no idea. I think maybe if you can put in some irritant and then the cyst may, anyone can, or Dr. Swami or Dr. Angelo can share. It can be done, but I have no idea and no experience.
So what I know is the moment you puncture the cyst, the treatment is over. Most of the cysts do not require any treatment. So that should address the problem. Why put a chemical and irritate?
No, but it will recur, it will fill up again. So maybe just puncture and de-roof it.
So that's what I meant.
Okay.
So Dr. Anjum Roundzi from Iraq, he wants to know the limitations of endoscopy in the lumbar spine in severe canal stenosis.
Severe canal interlaminar, I think the limitation is your experience. If you have less experience at the beginning, please avoid. There are problems, but once you have sufficient experience, lumbar canal stenosis bilateral decompression can be done very well, no problem. But in the beginning, yes, and there is a learning curve. That is another thing. There may be high risk of complications, but if you follow the steps very well, and before surgery you know what is wrong, what you have to take care of, where are the root compressed, displaced, keep ligamentum flavum intact until you have done all the bone decompression, drilling and everything. So the ligamentum flavum will keep, will prevent dural injury.
Sir, thank you for that, sir. Dr. Arnab Sahu from Malda wants to know what is lumbar canal stenosis. But I suppose we address the problem after assuming that that we define lumbar canal stenosis and then describe how to relieve it.
Lumbar canal stenosis, I think if the canal diameter, but canal diameter of less than 11 millimeter is a lumbar canal stenosis. But to call it specifically lumbar canal stenosis, if it is causing canal stenosis because of disc, try to avoid this lumbar canal, naming it lumbar canal stenosis. It is because of the disc problem. So the treatment is completely different. You just remove the disc and the patient is all right. So lumbar canal stenosis, I mean that there are multiple degenerative processes involved. It may be congenital canal stenosis added by the degenerative process which will rise to disc degeneration and protrusion little bit, and also along with the facet hypertrophy. There is also ligamental hypertrophy. So multiple factors combining and giving rise to diminution in the canal diameter. And there is a, I think, canal diameter of less than 100 mm cubic mm also causes symptoms always.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. And our own Dr. Rakesh Gupta from Indo, firstly, has congratulated you for giving important tips like pushing the disc from inside and removing the fragment. He says that it's even useful for microdiscectomy. They do the same technique. And he wants to know how do you manage CSF leak, but I suppose you explained how to manage CSF leak. It was asked before you could explain.
Yeah, I think it is when there is a just puncture, just put in fat and tissue glue. Even the medium side puncture also, what I do is that I put a fat and then I try to push this fat half inside at least, something like a bath plug technique, so that half is inside and half outside.
Sir.
And then in the end, I avoid taking a suture, but if there is a gross laceration, then either you can put in some graft and use a tissue glue, or convert it to the open surgery. Big root prolapse, especially in the beginning of your surgery, then possibly it is difficult.
So we have the last question from Army. Air Commodore Yadav wants, firstly, has congratulated for another wonderful webinar presentation. He has followed all our webinars and he has picked up many tips. He's following MSU classification for PAVD assessment, prior to planning. So he wants to know our comments on that. Are we following that, or are we, what exactly we are doing?
Which classification?
MSU classification.
Okay. I mean, regarding the extent
of PAVDs.
We use the canal diameter ODI also, Japanese and Orthopedics Association, to find out before surgery how much was the complaint and then how much the patient has reduced. Yeah, assessment, but I don't use this. Which
Yes,
says.
it's basically mainly how much the patient has got the symptom and the corroborative MRI findings.
Yeah.
Sir, he has got one more question, sir. What is the risk of operating on a spinous process fracture when you're doing a contralateral decompression, and how to avoid? How much is the risk of spinous process fracture?
At a risk of fracture of spine.
Spinous process. Yes.
If you over drill, I think, and then I had in one case, but patient did not have any complaint. Maybe sometime if you are not able to go on other side, you can drill the base of the spinous process, fracture it, and then you can go for good bilateral decompression. So just fracturing the spinous process and leaving the interspinous ligament and supraspinal, I think does not cause any problem. Yes.
So for this session only, these many were the questions, sir. Thank you for the elusive presentation. You are very, very elaborative in explaining diagrammatically as well as schematically. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that. And thank you, Dr. Angelo, for coming on the show. No, it was, we were rather pleased to have you. Thank you. Okay. Sir, with this I hand over to Santosh.
Special thank you to Angelo. Thank you, Angelo.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you. Thank you. Excellent.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I would like to thank you all the audience for joining this webinar, and it was very informative, and you must finding it very good, the lecture and the webinar. So very soon we'll announce the 6th webinar of Professor Y.R. Yadav sir in the series. So I'm very happy to share that 500 plus neurosurgeons across the globe joined today's webinar. And in that, from the 9 countries, almost 36 neurosurgeons from outside the India, they are logged in for the today's webinar. And I would like to special thanks to Dr. Angelo Lucano for joining this webinar. We were in touch since last 15 days. And I would like to thanks to Professor Dr. Narayan Swamy sir for his wonderful coordinating these sessions. And this webinar will be available on our DG Neuro channel. You can type it on YouTube, DG Neuro. You will get all these Y.R. Yadav sir's webinar and all other neurosurgery webinars. All is in under the one DG Neuro channels. So we request you all to support the Health News or the innovative products. And this webinar will be available on DG Neuro channel by tomorrow evening. So I request you to subscribe our DG Neuro channel for the more updates. And so thank you. Thanks again, sir, Dr. Yadav, sir, for.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We wish to thank Professor Dr. Yadav for allowing us to carry this webinar. It is our pleasure and privilege to carry your webinar series, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So nice of you. Thank you all the speakers and the audience.
Audiences.
Thank you.
Sir, Health News, we are closing this webinar. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.